For hardcore fangbangers and vampire fandom at large, True Blood is perhaps the ultimate TV show, packed with outstanding characters, steamy love triangles, bloody horror, and some seriously sharp world building. This HBO original series reigned supreme like the vampire king of Mississippi. Well, for a few seasons anyway, because as more magical creatures and even stranger relationships were introduced, the True Blood vamps began to lose their bite. And when the Southern Fried Saga of Sookie Stackhouse and Bill the Vampire finally came to a close, fans still felt a thirst that couldn't be quenched. When True Blood debuted in the fall of 2008, it was truly the perfect storm. While HBO had long been the go-to channel for prestige television, the network was quietly at a crossroads, as cultural-changing hits like The Sopranos and The Wire came to their natural conclusions, and new oddball entries like Big Love and John from Cincinnati struggled or outright failed to find a wide audience. It was an especially strange moment for the stalwart studio. But as HBO began to unveil a bloodthirsty marketing campaign for the latest original series, audiences were particularly primed to sink their teeth into a new take on vampires. Although the vampire genre has often fluctuated in popularity throughout history, those blood-sucking fiends were at a particularly low moment prior to True Blood's debut. After the supreme success of overly romantic early 90s fare like Bram Stoker's Dracula and Interview with the Vampire, vampire media fell into something of a slump. Heavily parodied and endlessly ridiculed, the very concept of sexy vamps became the butt of every joke. But as action-packed monster mashups like Blade, Van Helsing, and 30 Days of Night cleared major box office returns, many Dracula nerds felt like something was missing. And while millions of those amorous vampire stans found their sparkling savior in Stephenie Meyer's Twilight books, it was a new TV show that truly gave those fanged fans exactly what they wanted. From the very first moments of episode 1, True Blood makes it clear that vampire stories can be both sexy and absolutely terrifying at the same time. Following a couple of young lovers as they stop at a backwoods liquor store, the opening sequence acts as both a self-contained short horror story and an introduction to the wider world of True Blood. Inside the shop, a television shows footage of actual HBO personality Bill Maher interviewing a member of the so-called American Vampire League. While the couple anxiously approaches the counter for their booze, the TV show within a TV show fills the audience in on an alternate reality. A reality where vampires have quote-unquote come out of the coffin after the development of a synthetic drug. This drug, known as True Blood, acts as a replacer for human plasma, the staple of any healthy vamp diet, and has allowed the creatures of the night to walk freely among the living, at least after sundown. So when the young lovers come face to face with the seemingly unholy proprietor of the liquor store, the audience already understands their extreme terror. And when the intense, burly redneck at the back of the shop overhears their conversation, the scene transforms into a potentially ugly situation that feels all too real. But as the clerk reveals his fake fangs and phony accent, our relief becomes downright comical. Playing up to the established lore in such quick succession, the audience is disarmed, wondering what exactly they got themselves into. And then it hits you. Like a hybrid of From Dusk Till Dawn's big vampire reveal and Rob Zombie's hillbilly horrors, True Blood's opening scene is both a highly effective intro and a work of ghoulish art in its own right. And for many HBO viewers, this opening struck the right vein. With an extremely catchy and perfectly trashy opening theme sequence, the True Blood debut was electric, even before the central cast made an appearance. As the first season plays out, we are introduced to the wild and wonderful citizens of Bonton, Louisiana. From psychic leading lady Sookie Stackhouse's friends and family to a wide variety of local kooks and literal monsters, these initial episodes felt like looking in on an established community. Funny, surreal, and consistently surprising, True Blood Season 1 sort of reminds you of your hometown. Adapted from the Southern Vampire Mysteries, a series of novels by author Charlaine Harris, True Blood initially stuck to a fairly simple format: solve the mystery. In this case, local waitress Sookie uses her supernatural abilities and recent partnership with a 160-plus years old vampire to find out who has been murdering women in their small town. While many assume a vampire to be the culprit, Sookie and Bill Compton set out to defy these prejudices and discover the true perpetrator. Created and originally helmed by 6 Feet Under founder Alan Ball, the show's outlandish approach to the classic whodunit allowed its characters to flourish. Whether it's the hilariously incompetent detective Andy making our blood boil, or the extravagant and alluring Lafayette cracking us up, the True Blood townies made the show entirely entirely unique. Arriving just months after the much-anticipated release of the first Twilight film adaptation, vampires were back in a big way, and almost immediately True Blood obtained a fandom that few shows could hope for. While not on the same level of outright fever pitch between Team Edward versus Team Jacob, True Blood had an entire deck of shipping potential which showrunners fulfilled at every possible turn. Whether you were rooting for Sookie to wind up with the Southern gentleman Bill, or the sometimes villainous, sometimes sexy Eric Northman, or if you hoped that BFF Tara might put bad boy werewolf biker Allseed behind her to settle down with the steadfast shapeshifter Sam, well, True Blood had you covered. And when Season 2 upped the ante with an insidious cult descending on Bon-Ton, it felt like True Blood could truly do no wrong. With bigger laughs, heavier gore, and more adults-only fare than ever before, True Blood paved the way for big-budget genre television. Years before The Walking Dead first shuffled across our screens, or even before the Starks and Lannisters had it out on the same network, True Blood gave genre fans the maturity they craved. By soaking our screens in blood and sex, often in the same breath, HBO opened up the floodgates for decidedly not safe-for-work media with mass appeal to fandom. And when True Blood dropped the Season 2 stunner in which Godric, one of the Earth's oldest vampires, chooses his fate in a chilling act known as meeting the sun, the show proved it was more than gore and nudity. Outside of the monsters and mayhem, one of True Blood's many charms was a seemingly unending well of smaller mysteries. Although the killer's identity will be revealed before the finale, and even if the ancient cultists are ultimately dispersed, there is always more to discover. From passing mentions of witches to the revelation of walking and talking werewolves, these micro-mysteries were fun because we could immediately accept them as truth. Adding to that early excitement, there was one lingering question everyone was dying to know.
What are you?
I told you, I'm a waitress.
But unfortunately, it was perhaps True Blood's unwavering desire to reveal these new monsters and mysteries that ultimately led to its downfall. Because when Sookie started answering questions, things were never really the same. Although many credit the exit of Alan Ball in the 6th and 7th season as the death knell for HBO's bloodiest hit, a closer look at Season 3 reveals a runaway wagon on increasingly shaky wheels. While werewolves had piqued viewers' interest since the earliest signs that something was up with Sam, their overly realistic reveal was just too on the nose for some. And even though werepanthers were certainly part of Harris's original novels, their haphazard introduction felt like a similarly suspect surprise. And it is in sticking to the pages of the Southern Vampire Mysteries that Ball and HBO really run into trouble. Because when it is revealed that Sookie is, in fact, let's just double check those notes here, an actual fairy, it feels like a bridge too far. And for many fans, even Joe Manganiello as an outlaw werewolf couldn't quite make up for the introduction of cheap visual effects and bizarre mythologies. But even if you made it through the fairy world unscathed, seeing the ghostly apparition of ancient vampire Godric was a haunting reminder that much had changed in True Blood. As the show barreled on through 7 total seasons, no stone went unturned. From Lafayette receiving powers from Jesus, a Jesus who is also revealed to be a witch, to Bill the vampire going full-blown supervillain, and basically every character dating each other at some point throughout the series, True Blood fell victim to its own excess. And as similarly naughty genre fare like Game of Thrones began to air on HBO, it seems like the Bon-Ton citizens had been drained of their life force. Where Game of Thrones chose to sprinkle in its hidden supernatural wonders, True Blood continued to throw them in your face. And by the time Sookie Stackhouse discovered the true nature of her fairy godparents and real-life parents alike, it was all too ridiculous for even the most ardent fangbanger. Like a hit of V or the pleasures of a bull god cult, too much of anything is just plain bad for you. And by indulging so deeply in its own outrageousness, True Blood forgot to keep us in the loop. As characters outgrow their own trappings, often becoming literal superhumans, it's hard to believe in small-town living. And when there are so many new creepy crawlies prowling around, you practically need a monster manual. It's hard to remember that vampires are supposed to be the central creature feature. Despite rumblings of a reboot from HBO, the project ultimately fell flat several years after the original series concluded. And as gory vampire films have once again taken flight, it's hard not to miss the down-home charms of Sookie and Bill. But like our hometown recollections, it's our earliest memories which often shine brightest when held up to the light. Anything past that, and you just might find some real bad things. And that is it for this week's episode. So what do you think? Does True Blood deserve the reboot treatment, or is this classic better left in the grave? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to hit like and subscribe to keep up with all our Nerdstalgic videos.